Let me see.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining Professionals on the Grind, where we share honest self talk career advice with driven individuals. And today we have Charo Toledo. Let's start off with you telling us where you're from and what your current position is.
Of course. My name is Charo Toledo. I'm an award-winning and best-selling author, writer, and producer, and I am the CEO of my company right now, Charo Entertainment LLC.
Wonderful. That is amazing. And thank you so much for being on. And I always like to start from the beginning with a few background questions to really help paint your journey. So, could you start with sharing what was the highest level of education your parents received? And if they were working, what kind of jobs or industries were they in?
So my mother and my father stressed education a lot because they said that's something you cannot be taken away from you, right? So my highest level of education is a master's in fine arts. I did a master in acting, of all things, at American Conservatory Theater. My BA is from Swarthmore College. I studied sociology, anthropology, minor in languages, and my dad was a triple threat. He was a lawyer, he was a professor of business administration, and he was also a poet. Uh,
Amazing.
and my mother and they both had master's degrees. And my mother was a nutritionist by trade, a dietitian. So she also got a master's at the University of Virginia in Richmond, and both did their undergrad in University of Puerto Rico.
Amazing. And I know because I know you that they had their success in Puerto Rico. So could you talk to us about that? They went to school in well, how the Hawaiians call it, the mainland, right? And then went
Yes.
back to
Mhm.
be successful career people in Puerto Rico. Could you tell us
Right.
how that influenced you as you were coming up in the mindset that you had? They stressed education. So from early on, you knew you had to get the grades to get into college.
So what is interesting is my dad was disabled. So he was not your typical Latino dad.
Yeah.
He couldn't do things by force, but he knew from earlier on he had a photographic memory and he was a genius. So he knew that if you cultivated your mind and if you couldn't walk there, you could delegate somebody to walk there. And so it was always stressed in my household the importance of thought and of education and of being able to know what you're talking about. And
Yeah.
also, since he was an attorney, you had to be able to argue your point successfully. And in order
Okay.
to argue your point successfully, you have to, have receipts. You have to know what you're talking about, or you would be decimated at the dinner table. Uh, but they did do the undergrad in Puerto Rico, the college in Puerto Rico, but they
Yeah.
both knew that they had to go to the United States, to the mainland, so to speak, to get a different or better education. My dad ended
Yeah.
up at Wharton Business School, which is a huge Ivy League school before American Disabilities Act, before the Civil
Mm.
Rights Act. He walked in crutches. He fell on the snow. Again, a man who, when I start feeling sorry for myself for any kind of reason, I just remember him. And he was like,
Yeah.
there's a will, there's a way. There's no excuses. We have health. We can walk. We can get there. We have no excuses. So that's always stayed in my head, the excellence and how with your brain. And if you cultivate your mind and your education, you can
Right.
travel anywhere.
So having a law, degree father, was there judgment or a push for you to not go into theater or acting, or like what was that conversation with you as a young high school student trying to debate your father?
Yes, indeed. Because the thing is that I was having a lot of success in what is called forensics. It was oratoria in Spanish. So basically, we
Mhm.
would memorize poems. I would memorize poems. I would recite them. I would compete at a high school level, and I would always place first or second. So there was a talent there. And so, but my mother was the one who put her foot down, and she said, my father always wanted me to be an artist, un artista, and be in the farandula and all of that.
Really?
Oh,
Okay.
that was his thing, because I think he was a poet. He would go stand up and in parties and recite his own poems and take the microphone, and so like I mean, again, a man with crutches, disability,
Yeah.
not the microphone, and he's just there, Neruda, Lorca, like just reciting. My mother was like, no, you need to have a backup plan. You need to make sure that you have a college education, and then after that, if you want to go to get a master's in acting and all that, then we can revisit that. But you need to do that first. My mother had this whole thing, because I was also a model when I was in Puerto Rico. So
Mhm.
she also saw the environment, that the kind of people that were there, a lot of drug use, a lot of
Right.
eating disorders, a lot of weird stuff. And my mother was like, no, I'm putting my foot down. No, you're not going to be around these people.
Not the life for you.
Well, but you know what? Mothers have an instinct about friends. And, there are friends that they can tell this is not a good friend for you. They're going to take you down the wrong path. And I think that that's really important for anybody who's a mom or has children or are children. If you really look back, your life could really be decided if you end up with a bad friend at the wrong place at the wrong time,
Right.
trying to belong and trying to be cool. You can end up in a lot of trouble. And my mother was hyper vigilant about that. So,
Of course. What's interesting is you have a very unique perspective as a career woman, right? Because you're not just pursuing a degree in a different like a ship a plane over, right? Like now you're going
right.
to start your life. And Latinos and Latinas, they have such a hard time letting their kids fly from the nest. So were your parents helpful with the application process, with you going to, where'd you get your undergrad?
I went to Swarthmore College, which is a
Okay.
most competitive small liberal arts school. My other
Where?
in Pennsylvania,
In
so it's
Pennsylvania.
like 20 minutes from Philadelphia, and it's like a lot of very. What I loved about that college, it was like 7-to-1 teacher to professor to student. My
Yeah.
older sister, went to Harvard, so she was like being taught by a TA, and it was huge. And then my younger sister went to Columbia, and so that was like huge too. And this was a small liberal arts college, and yet it felt like manageable. It was still a cultural shock coming from
Mhm.
Puerto Rico, Catholic, crazy, wild, to
Yeah.
snow, cold, the Protestant ethic, the
Mhm.
England kind of. It's a whole other thing, and speaking English all the time, of course, because I did learn uh, English, but we speak Spanish in Puerto Rico. So
Right.
that was really like, oh, wait, I'm somewhere else. Even though the school I went to, our subject matters were in English. So it was a little bit, I could study in English and everything, but your day to day, it was total, I mean, and the climate and everything, the culture, it was a
Yeah.
shock. But back to your question, my parents always pushed to college, so that was not a bad, that was not a thing. But they did not, my mother did not want me to go to Juilliard or to
Mhm.
like right away to acting. It felt like it was dangerous or something.
Right. No, that's so interesting. So then there was help with like filling out your FAFSA, understanding the educational landscape because it's always so great to hear Latinas that do get that insight from their parents, but there
Right.
is that fight. I think most of us wouldn't be in our career path because again, you're either a lawyer or a doctor, and that's it. There's no in between for Latinos,
Yeah, my
and
sister, yeah, my younger sister was a lawyer. My older sister was a banker. So I was just like kind of the black sheep of the family. And, I mean, looking back, it's been a struggle all my life
yeah.
because I have chosen a very challenging career and a very rewarding career when it works. And but it's like a vocation.
Mhm.
I put it like a nunnery, so to speak, because it's like it's feast or famine. And it is like it's a difficult and challenging, but then at the end of the day, I know that this is what I was supposed to do. This
That's
is my
perfect.
path.
So let's get into your education, right? Like
Okay.
you knew from the start you had this passion for arts,
Yes.
poetry, acting. So it sounds like you stuck to your major, but did you do it for money, passion? Did you know you're doing it for passion and money will come? Like what was the dream in Charo's head when you chose this as your major?
Oh my God. Well, so when I went to Swarthmore, I knew I had to study, but I was in the dance troupe. I was in the theater class. You know what I mean? I was
Yeah.
in 500 things at once. I was like, oh my God. I was in women's center at that time where people were being educated about feminism, like
Mhm.
the fraternities were being educated. It was just a whole thing. Um, what did I imagine? I think that as a naive young girl, I was like, I want to be like Rita Moreno. I want to be
Mm.
like, have my Oscar and get
Yeah.
win a Tony and an Oscar.
Be an
And
EGOT
yeah,
actress,
I was
and
just
yeah.
like, I'm going to go and I'm going to study acting after school. And then I will then be cast in all these roles, and then I'll be, and it doesn't work that it doesn't work that way at all. It's different.
It's a hard industry. It's one of the hardest industries to jump into. And this kind of is going to help the listener or the viewer. Would you do anything different in college, knowing what you know now about the workforce and the industry?
Hey, Diana, that question.
It's important because you start to reassess once you're in oh, I should have done that internship, or maybe I should have chosen a school in LA, right? Just a small detail that might have made an impact for you in this career path.
Um, you know, we can always play Monday night quarterback, you know what I mean? And look back at what shoulda, woulda, coulda.
Mhm.
I I think, I ended up with the right teacher that was a dance teacher that ended up giving me great recommendations to be able to get to American Conservatory Theater where I did my master's. So I think I played that game right, so to
Okay.
speak. Um, I think the big shock after American Conservatory Theater was that when you're studying theater, you're told you can play anything. You can be anything. So I
Mhm.
played a lot of the leads in Shakespeare, right? And then you audition for the Oregon Shakespeare Festival and you have an accent.
Oh.
Oh, yes.
Mm.
And then you're like, well, why am I not getting the parts when I am a really good actor?
Yeah. And you get hit with that
And then you get
reality.
hit with that. And then you
Wow.
get hit with that. And then I had a teacher at that time. There was an improv class, and the teacher says, well, if you wanted to play a lower class person, why didn't you play a Puerto Rican?
Wow.
And that caused a huge rift. I felt completely alienated, and I was just like, nobody stood up, nobody said anything. It was a huge, 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 like, bucket of cold water of reality as to how I was going to be seen no matter what my talent was.
Mm.
As a woman,
Right.
especially too, that it's the parts were nannies, maids, and prostitutes, and maybe a cop here and there.
Right.
And I was just like, but that is not how I grew up. I grew up in an island where there were doctors and lawyers and bankers and different people from, high class, lower class, middle class. Like it does not just service industries, nothing wrong
Right.
with professions. I'm just saying
Right.
I was confused. And that was a big slap when I came to Hollywood, which is, I'm going ahead. But when I remember auditioning for the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, I'm like, oh, it went really well. And then and just only the people that got cast were white people.
Wow. So then because we'll get into that, right? Well, we're gonna get into that.
I don't mean to
How?
sound bitter, but that's
No,
just the
no, but
way.
that's the reality. That's the
Mhm,
reality that you
mhm.
face through your career. And this is what this platform is for. Like, let's have these honest, career centered conversations. And sometimes the sexism, the racism, the machismo, like all of the above is what you're going to encounter. And it's up to you to determine if you have the drive to keep pushing forward. You
Mhm.
have to disregard sometimes to push
Gotta keep
forward.
moving like a shark. And I had
Like a shark. Exactly.
a boyfriend said,
Exactly.
"Sure, you're a shark." I said, "I'm like, I don't know, 5 years ago." He's like, "Char, you're still a shark. You have your you have your, what you want." Because, you always wonder. I mean, when you said, "Would you have done something different?" Would I have stayed with my boyfriend from college and then
Mm,
married and now, mm, have
yeah.
grandchildren and whatnot and like children, grandchildren? It's like, but I don't know. My spirit was like, that's not what you're supposed to do. You
Right.
have a message, you have a talent, and you're gonna feel suffocated and trapped there. This is not gonna work.
Right.
So I
So let me ask you, right? So you graduate college. Do you
okay,
go straight into your master's or did you work a
correct.
bit real
No,
okay, so why'd you make that choice?
because I want it because I heard, oh, Hollywood, you have to be young. So you have to just kind of like friendo coming, like you got to go on. And my parents wanted me to, mira, eso the gap year and all of that. No, my parents were not about that gap year. It's like, what are you talking about gap year? What is that? No, that's a new thing, that I hear people saying, I'm taking a gap year. And then it's like, no, my mother thought, no, you're going to go and you're going to finish your master's. And that's just it. You just, yeah,
Do it.
you're
Okay, no,
going to
that's
do
great.
it.
Did it help you? You don't really hear a lot of Hollywood stars or people in that industry with masters. Did it help in any way?
Like in a Benning, like there, I went to my school. I think as Denzel Washington went to my school and to ACT.
Mhm.
I think having the MFA works. Like people say,
Okay.
"Sure, you have a master's." You know what I mean? It gives some kind of credibility.
Right.
In hindsight, because when I graduated ACT in California, it was in San Francisco. I had a
Mhm.
choice: do I go to New York or do I go to Los Angeles? And then people are like, "Well, if you want to do theater, you go to New York. If you want to do television and film, you go to Los Angeles." That's how it was back in the day.
Yeah.
Now you can just be bi-coastal and even go to ATL and all this other stuff. But back in the day, that's
Yeah.
the choice. And it was like, well, you have to go because people, it's all about being young over there. So you got to get over there now. Can't.
Right. I love that. So let's get into your professional experience and let's
Okay.
start with what first generation means to you. And in your case, you are first generation because your parents weren't in Hollywood. So you had to navigate that all by yourself. And how did you see that impact your career experience?
Listen, Diana. I had an aunt. I gotta bring my aunt, which is in my book in the Latina Survival By. I call her Titi Fiera, but her name was Titi Mina. Anyway, and she was a pioneer, and she did a lot of things by herself. She built a pool, she built a house, she did electricity, all that. And every time I think about Hollywood, I was totally going alone in the Wild West.
Mhm.
Like I knew how to drive, but to go to San Francisco to LA, I got a car, bought a car, and I drove myself alone here.
Wow.
I ended up staying at the house of this couple that were actors at ACT, where I had been in San Francisco. They were, oh, they just come and house sit for us, which was incredible. And Silver Lake, a great, like, huge
Yeah.
house. And I knew two people.
Wow.
That's it. I knew a guy who ended up doing was part of a group called Culture Clash, and then my friend Jennifer Joyce, who was taking classes at the Groundlings, and then she ended up being a big TV writer. She
Mhm.
was taking classes at the Groundling and waitressing at the Stage Deli and living in Beverly Hills and so on. But like again, I didn't know anybody,
Yeah.
and I came alone here. I mean, I
Because
guess I
someone
look
told
back,
you just had to do it. You're young, this is when you go.
but yeah, because who else was gonna do it? And even
Yeah.
when I went to sophomore, I went alone. My parents didn't come and drop me off. I went alone, and I had to figure out everything. So I'm here now, and I'm like, I don't know, and I don't know how I ended up with an agent that I was doing voiceovers and going to
Well,
commercial.
let's try to remember. Let's try to remember because we want to try to give people as much guidance as possible. So, do you remember
Okay,
your
no, I know
first job?
exactly what happened. I know
Okay, what
exactly what
happened?
happened. I had an agent. Okay, so what
How'd
happened?
you get your agent?
Okay. So when I was at ACT, American Conservatory Theater, at the
Mhm.
end of the 2 years, they do like a showcase. Okay. And then they invite agents and people, industry
Right.
people. From that showcase, I got my first agent. And
Wow.
I was doing modeling and voiceover work and commercials and industrials. Industrials are like training videos. Okay. So that happened. I don't remember the name of the agency, but anyway, so I was there. When I moved to LA, I still was with them, but then they connected me with this other agency called Tisherman Agency. And that's how I transitioned
Amazing.
into voiceover, commercial things. That's how that happened.
That's
Yes.
great. So it sounds like your master's program really developed you.
Right.
And that's also something interesting to look for. Like, is there an end year? What's the capstone project for y'all? Is it that the school is inviting the right people to get you to that next step? Because
Correct.
if that program isn't set up in that capacity, then you don't get the opportunity. You don't get the agent
Yes.
that
So
transfer
in a
you to
way, yes, you're
college.
absolutely right. And I think that was, yeah, that
So
was it.
did you have a level of confidence, right? Like they're giving you jobs and you're not doubting yourself. You're like, yeah, I can be a voice actor. Yeah, I can, be this model. Like, what was your mindset so young, straight out of college? Because a lot of people deal with imposter syndrome, right? And they're like, oh, I
Yes,
just
no,
did my
that
first
was,
job.
I feel like all throughout my 20s and 30s, like I was completely beating myself up that I was in this or I wasn't that. I wasn't pretty enough. I wasn't thin enough. I mean, it was just insanity. It was just
Mhm.
total insanity. Um, and if I have a message for young people that are in their 20s and 30s, please hear me out. Youth is wasted on the young. Just kidding. No, because it's like you have energy, you have health, you're so beautiful. And so all that crazy mind stuff of I'm not good enough or it's such a waste of time. So
Yeah.
if the sooner you meditate and pray and try to grab hold of thought, of
Mhm.
negative thought and put it out. Also take away toxic people and
Yeah.
the quicker you clean all of that, the more happy you will be and the more successful you will be. And there was no guidance for that
Yeah.
back in the day. It was just I don't even know how I ended up like alive here today, to be honest, because
But
there
you're
was
here, right, through your own sheer will and determination
and
and
God. I mean,
vivacious.
I was watched over. I had a lot of faith. Like it was a naive kind of like I'm going out there. And it's so funny because I had another aunt who never had children. She was married. She became a superintendent of schools, and she says, "There is Charo out there alone." You
Mm,
know?
I love that. So, could you walk us through because you have a very unique history in your resume, right? So,
Yes.
you've been a
Bible
producer,
girl.
you're a writer, you're an executive producer, now you're an accomplished author. Can you walk us through how you were able to pivot into so many subsections of the industry? I think people would like to hear because sometimes you hear the term, you get what's the term, pigeonholed or pigeon,
Right.
right? And it
Right.
happens to the employees that aren't on camera. So can you walk us through your various positions and how that organically happened,
Right.
or did you work for it?
So, the career of an artist is very nonlinear in my experience as a
Mhm.
Latina woman, right?
Yes.
In Hollywood, it's been very nonlinear. So, part of my mother's thoughts was this: you need to have your bachelor's, you need to have this quote unquote backup plan to
Mhm.
be able to do other jobs while You get the acting job, or you get the writing
Mhm.
job, or you ever. So, um, I was an actress, and I was reading today an article that Michelle Pfeiffer was talking about the anxiety of acting.
Mm.
I mean, she's a star, right?
Yeah.
And I had such an anxiety about acting, even though I was so good at it. I was just, oh my God. And so I ended up doing all this acting, but then I said, I took a class with a colleague, my friend Rick, and I helped him produce and write some stuff, and then a play, and then I wrote my own play. And I said, let me write. I have a brain. I went to Swarthmore. Let me, so that I can be a little more removed from
Mm.
being so exposed. I think actors are incredible. I admire them, the craft, the vulnerability. And because as an actor, your body and your face and your voice and everything is your instrument,
Right.
it's very hard. Rejection is hard, everything to do it well. I feel it's very hard. So I have incredible respect for actors, and I love doing it. I just emotionally was a lot.
Can we
So
take a second? Hold on. Can we take a second to acknowledge that? Because I think some people sometimes feel like I'm so miserable and I hate my job and it gives me anxiety. I'm crying. Maybe that's the sign. Hey, it's time to leave. So this was your sign that you didn't want to leave the industry, which is fair, but you said, let me pivot into something else that I know I have the talent to do.
yes, because there's a part of me that I didn't realize that is very introverted. I think I'm an ultravert. I think something like that, which is like,
You, Charo? Okay.
but there is a part of me that is incredibly sensitive. A lot of artists are. And I just didn't have the tools to handle all that rejection. And I just didn't have it at that time.
Mhm.
Um, Now people are calling me, oh, would you act? I'm like, I don't know. I'm just, so if anybody's having such anxiety that it's causing all of this, it might be a sign that this is not for you. I mean, if you not just like, oh, of the first month of anxiety in a job. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying, like, if you've been in it for 2 years and you're like, oh my God, this is just not working. You got to be honest with ourselves. I had to be honest with myself. And I said, you know what? I don't want to be talking about plastic surgery when I'm in my 40s around the craps table fighting, these amazing women for one part out of 500 actors. Like, what is this? This makes no sense to me.
Right.
And so then I pivoted into writing and wrote my one woman show called The Princess Within. And then it was a one woman show, but I said, no, I don't want to do the whole thing myself. I'm just going to do one part to kind of join all the, and then because it was all the personalities I developed with the different men I dated. So I ended up,
Which is so typical for women.
I gotta bring it back up because people are always talking about that show. And I cast different people that I knew, actors that needed a job. Then, as a producer, the brain behind that was then they will bring their people to the
Mm.
audience, right? To the theater.
Expanding your network.
So
Genius. You
then,
are
so then it was
uh,
not all on me to fill the house. So then so that's how it's like, well, that's what makes sense to me business wise. Like, okay, so then Sandrita will bring their people, Ashley will bring their people, Renee will bring their people.
mhm.
So then it was very eclectic and it was very ahead of its time. And even the proceeds we gave to Women Organized Against Rape. Like I've always been involved because the script, I mean, the play ends with I am the frog who became the prince who rescued the princess within.
Mm.
So everything that I've been looking outside in all these people that I dated, it comes full circle to, which is a very now message everywhere. Everything, abundance is within, happiness is within, which is not how I grew up. You blame everybody.
No, that's perfect. It's amazing. And so you lead on to write this successful play. And let's just say it
Yes.
doesn't just have to go for Hollywood and play. If you're launching a business, and now that panels and having guests are such a big thing, use a chapter or a page from Charles' book and use that to invite people that you know have the doors you want opened, the network you want to build, or the support you want, and create that sort of blueprint that you just provided us, right? Like that's so smart. That's so
And it
intelligent.
was so fun for everybody, and
I'm
and
so
then
good.
everybody talked about it. So then it spread out, and then we did it in different places. And what was so great about it is that I got to write these characters. Other people got to perform them. I found a
Mhm.
director. How did I find a director? I mean, again, it's like it all came together,
Right, right.
and it was just incredible.
So at this rate, let's talk about networking before we move on from you
Okay.
writing. And so it sounds like you already had an established network. So how did you establish your network in Hollywood from actress to writer? Are you keeping a Rolodex? You didn't have LinkedIn or Instagram back then. So were you using
No,
MySpace? I'm just kidding. Email. How were you building your network?
basically in a little black book with phone numbers. Just analog all the
Yeah.
way. Like that's how you did it, you know? I mean, and
But
then
were you
email.
intentional about saying, "Okay, I need to join a writers group to meet other writers. I need to go to this party because I know I'm going to meet." Like, how were you navigating that network? Because in Hollywood, you do have to grind in that
You do,
capacity,
you
right?
do. You know, I was really lucky. I went to a couple parties, met the right people, and then I was hooked up. I mean,
If it was that easy, it was that easy, which is perfect. But how did you get connected with the right people? Where did you meet them?
there were a lot of parties back in the day. HBO. I don't know. There were
Mhm.
just different initiatives because now there's no DEI, but back in the day, there were some initiatives and some people who had deals and they would throw parties and then you would go to these events. Um, there was also the LATC. They had their own little group there. So I got to meet some of those people, but there were a lot of cliques. That's another
Mhm.
thing. There was a lot of cliques. So navigating cliques was as an outsider, I was seen as a Puerto Rican carpetbagger,
Mm.
again, so navigating all of that was really foreign to me because I'm like, well, I'm Latino, I'm Latino. It's like, no,
Right.
not all Latinos are the same, I found out. And then I was
Right.
like, oh, okay, whatever. I'll just keep doing my thing like a shark. I'll just keep moving forward.
I love
And
that.
you find
So
allies along the way
So let
that
me ask you, since we've kind of already touched on this,
Mhm.
how did you deal with your Hollywood version of corporate politics, right? And this you talked about it a little bit, right? Like there you can go into like sexism, you can go into just
Everything.
everything.
Mhm.
So tell us, how did you navigate the Hollywood corporate
You're
politics?
gonna get me in hot water here,
You can be as
Diana.
PG as you'd like, PG-13. You don't have to get into it, but
In
some
hinds
advice would be
in
nice.
hindsight in
Yeah.
hindsight. Because there's so many few Latino projects, few Latino parts, few Latino everything, everybody's really territorial and protective
Mm,
of their zone.
okay.
So when you come in and you're young and cute and talented and oblivious to all this craziness, right?
Mm.
People are attracted to your energy because
Toxic.
you're not toxic. And then I realized I was like, why does that group does not want me in their group, right? And then I was like, oh well, it's their loss. I'm not going to start analyzing why these people are so small-minded that they don't think that there's enough room for all of us, but that they only have room for themselves. I mean, I'm just being honest, and it's still going
Yeah.
on. So then I built my own stuff. That's what I did. I built my own stuff. I connected with Rick, Rick Naira, and he was doing Latina logs. And then I ended up producing, acting in it, helping him with that. And then I wrote my Princess Within because I learned a lot from him. And then I wrote my
Mhm.
Princess. And then I started, and then after the Princess Within, what happened is that play got me a lot of attention. So because of that play, then I started being hired to do the Nosotros Awards, the Imagen Awards, the award shows. And that's where my career starts going a little crazy
Okay. Okay.
because I was doing theater but I wanted to, and then I wanted to do movies and television, but there's no parts there. But then now I'm a writer. So then I'm like, well, she can write. She wrote this play that was sold out. Okay, and so that's how I started learning this networking industry. So I wrote for, I don't know, the Nosotros Award. And so then I'm there writing and meeting celebrities because you're writing
Mhm.
draws. And that time, and I mentioned myself, but that time Ricardo Montalban was still in the organization. So I got to meet
Right.
him.
Okay.
And so it was like, and then you learn how to write these intros and outros and run the show. I mean, the pay was not the greatest, but that's how you start navigating and you start meeting all these people and celebrities and.
Charo, I think you just discovered the cure for imposter syndrome. Because let me tell you, just
Oh, really?
listening to what you were saying,
Uh-huh.
you didn't let the negativity, let's call it the haters, the naysayers, the people who have an issue with
They were
you,
threatened. Yeah.
threatened by you. You didn't let that put you into a mindset of just complete destitute. You
Correct.
were like, okay, you don't like me, next. You don't like me, okay, like this shark. And I think that's where we get stuck with imposter syndrome, where you're questioning yourself because other people are questioning you, or perhaps that doubt is stemming from external factors, and it shouldn't. You just say, you know what, you don't like me, let me move on, and that's it. Like, you don't like me, guess what, I'm still going to do my job, but I'm going to do it over here and you do your job over there. Like,
Yeah. And
amazing.
because I think the trap on the imposter syndrome, now that I'm hearing you, is
Mhm.
wanting approval, wanting to
Yes.
be liked. And as Latinas, we
Mhm.
grew up being a good girl. Do you like
Yeah.
me? Am I good enough? Blah, blah, blah. You
Mhm.
got to just say, okay, adios. Because people might not like you because they don't like themselves.
Yeah.
People may not like you because they have a very limited capacity. That's a word I've been embracing lately. In any
Really?
relationship, think about it. In any relationship, what is the capacity of the person for love, for time, for care, for talent, for success? What is the capacity? If they are filled with grief, like this little bottle, if they're filled with grief, there's no capacity for love. If they're filled with hate, there's no capacity for love. If they're
Right.
filled with insecurity, there's no capacity for love. You have to empty all of that in order to make room for abundance, love, success, just vibrancy, hope,
But you
laughter.
were so young. How did you know, I'm not going to let this phase me, I'm just going to keep moving? Was that something in you, or was it something you
It
learned?
was
Did something
my
happen?
dad because my dad said, when
Stop.
there's a will, there's a way. He
Yeah.
couldn't walk, and yet he still got places because he delegated and he maneuvered. And
Right.
that's pivoting skill. That's my dad. I learned from my dad. And
Amazing.
so that's why I feel like dads, are so important sometimes because dads teach us to navigate the world, navigate
Mhm.
business, navigate the
Right.
world. I think mothers pues nos apapuchan and oh, come here
Mhm.
and be sweet and teach us other skill sets, right? But what?
No, I'm like, man, why wasn't my dad handicapped? I'm not trying to get canceled, but it does put that like mindset of, if he did it with one good leg, how am I not doing it with two? Right?
Like what is And because of the cultivation of the brain,
Mhm,
we go back
mhm.
to education, which was how we started this talk. You're like, wait a minute, I have a brain and I can reason my way out of this
Right, right.
mathematically. Do you know what
Of
I mean?
course, of
As
course.
opposed to emotionally and going into beauty, youth, people, personality, taking it back inside. I'm like, no, let's see what the strategy is to get out, like a video game, like a maze.
Right,
Let's get out. How do we get there?
right. So it sounds like your dad was your first mentor, your first guidance. Did you have any industry mentors guiding you along as you were navigating your career as a writer, as a producer?
I At the beginning, like when the whole thing in ACT happened, there's a very famous woman. Her name is Anna DeVere Smith, and she has done a lot of. She's a big actress. She's does these one woman shows that are incredible, where she duplicates the rhythm of how people speak. I mean, she's just a genius. So she
Mhm.
was my teacher at ACT when that whole Puerto Rican comment came about, and I kind of isolated myself from my class. And she said, you have two choices: to
Mm,
isolate yourself with people, still you have to act and be in school, or take note of what happened, of the racism, whatever, let it go and just clock it. Just know that that's what it is and keep moving.
yeah,
So I think that that has been a theme. When I came to LA, I didn't really have a mentor. I
yeah.
did know some people here and there. Um, a very good friend who's now a very good friend of mine. She was the head of Hamas. She was the head of ratings and legal at Sony for 25 years. And she's still my friend now. And Ivy Orta, and she was like, you have to be tough. You have to grow a tough skin in this business. There's no crying in baseball, so to speak.
Mm,
And, because as artists, we're sensitive, right? And she's like,
mm.
you gotta be tough. You have to let it, I mean, which is a huge lesson, to let things roll off and to keep moving.
That's actually one of my questions. How do you deal with disappointment or career failures? Like it sounds like you were giving the guidance, but how did you? It's easy to hear it and
Right.
to receive the guidance, but actually practicing it. And it's an industry where rejection is common. So how did you build that skin?
Well, now I know that rejection is redirection. Now I know that there's been things that I wanted with all my heart and I don't understand and I'm crying and this could have changed my life. And what I'm realizing now, it's taken me a long time. That's why you win if you don't quit.
Mm,
Some lessons take a long time to learn. And what I'm realizing now is that, oh my God, I'm getting emotional. God won't give you anything that you can't handle. So even though you think you may be able to handle something, there might be things in that, conversations you haven't heard, traps along the way, minefields that could have destroyed you.
mm,
And so, or I'm just talking about myself, could have destroyed me. So I didn't get it. And I think in order to be in a position of power, leadership, handling lots of money, lots of people, lots of responsibilities, you got to be right. You got to be humble. You got to be right in your heart. You got to have a lot of faith. You got to have a lot of emotional and self control. You got to be always thinking of being of service to the project and to the people and
yeah.
your crew. You cannot do it me, and being in the cover of Variety. Who cares?
Mhm.
It's not going to work. And so I don't want to jump ahead, but I think I'm now in a position of leadership that I have earned the hard
Right,
way
right. Why the hard way?
because of the rejection. And because what I think was right was not right. And I'm glad that I didn't get it because I would have implemented something wrong. I think that sometimes, especially when you've had a lot of rejection, you go at something with a revenge in mind, with like,
Mm,
show them,
yeah.
I'll show them. Mm-mm. No, that doesn't work either because you'll end up in a very bitter, crazy place. And the thing is that everything is transition. Today you are winning an Academy Award, and tomorrow you're waitressing in a thing because your money hasn't come in. Like that's the thing about the business. You have to have the capacity for humility and service.
Mm,
I did not have that. I think it was a lot of bravado, a lot of like, I'm the best. I want to show you. No, 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 eso no funciona. Maybe with some people, but even that, no, it doesn't work. At least for me.
so you
Uh,
said two very powerful things. And I'll start with the first one because that's where your sentence just ended. But you said some things that you're having a hard time navigating might take years, might take a longer time to walk through. When did you realize, like, oh my gosh, this problem, I'll get over it in 3 to 5 business days? That problem, oh my gosh, I'm realizing it's going to take me a few years, maybe some therapy. Like, when did you distinguishing that time frame allow you to just be a little more calm and at peace with allowing things to flow the way they flow?
well, well, I'll just say it. I think that sobriety, I mean, again, I'm just going to go for it. So, being in this industry, you can end up a lot in substance and drinking and all of that.
Right.
And I've had my journey with that up and down. Um, Now, I thank God I've been sober for 5 years, but that is to me the game changer
Mm.
because when you remove distractions, um, when you remove distractions and you face who you are with your God and you have nothing to lose, but all you have is your faith and your vision, that's when the magic happens. I
That's
mean, you
so
hear it a lot. I mean, you hear a lot like you hear like J.K. Rowling. She was like living on the streets and until she sold. I mean, Harry Potter. I know she's controversial and other things, but I'm just saying. I'm just talking about the
right. That
particular
example. Yeah.
that example, or like a lot of people, and it's not like, oh, I have to be about to be homeless to win. I'm not saying that's not for everybody. But there's a message in that, which is that you have to stop having any expectation. You just have to just be totally humble and real and of service to say this is why I'm here. This is God gave me this idea. Here we are. How are we gonna all make it? And how am I going to be? See, the thing is, every God gives us a talent. And so it's about how are we gonna steward and multiply this talent? Are we
Mhm.
gonna throw it away? Are we gonna just destroy it? What are we going to do with this? Because it's a very precious thing. So now I understand the responsibility of the talent and of the storytelling talent and of producing talent and acting if I ever chose to go back to that or
Yeah.
and especially in Hollywood because when you have a show, when you have a movie that is going to impact millions of people, that's a huge responsibility. So you got to be right for it to come out right. And some people have made deals with the devil, and that's whatever they do.
That's a whole other podcast, which will be great.
That's another part, but that's not how I'm living my life. I'm got
Right.
a narrower path, which is I think the harder path, but the truer path for myself. Everybody can do whatever they want. I want to sleep at night, and I
It's
want to,
powerful. It's
you know,
powerful. The second amazing thing you said was you don't win. You can't win if you quit. Right.
right.
And that is going to segue me into dealing with, like, how do you deal with jealousy? How do you deal with haters or toxic,
Ooh,
friend group? Like, I'll give a little example. I was bullied. I've had such a hard time navigating that mental. It impacted me. I've never confessed. It really impacted me mentally in such a hard way. And I'm still dealing with it, right? But people are like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you haven't quit, you haven't left," or whatever the comment is. And it's like, well, you just have to keep going. And it's hard to push it away, but that's kind of what you have to. And you hope that one day, you'll get over, maybe to your point, and it's music to my ears, like in 5 years and 10 years, it'll go away. But if you quit, you can't win.
you can't win.
You can't win. So how have you dealt with bullying or toxicity? I'm sure you've dealt with a lot, so you don't have to give all of your examples. You don't have to give a specific
What?
example.
No,
You
no,
can
no,
kind of share how you've
no,
navigated, like, well, I
no.
just block them, right? Like, how do you navigate those toxic relationships?
Well, I think I'm going to talk about the book because I think my book, The Latina Survivor.
Yes. Everyone go buy it. It's on Amazon. Where can people buy it? Amazon
Latina.
is it?
Once I wrote this book, I realized the toxic patterns I learned in my childhood and in my background. And I'm not blaming anybody. It was
Yeah.
just a reflection.
Right.
And so when I got to see it, right, that's why journaling is really good, because nobody can bully you if they don't have a hook. Okay.
Mhm.
So we got to keep examining what are our hooks and our insecurities that people want to, there's some evil people in the world. I am convinced that because they're so unhappy themselves and they get power by bullying other people, and it's all ego,
Yeah.
which ego is for me edging God out. It's like false evidence appearing real fear. So when we deal with our own insecurities, right? So when we know what's under the bed, right? We're not afraid of the monster under the bed. So then you don't have any power over me. So you can say whatever, but I already know. And that may or may not be true. So, okay, so the book became a #1 Amazon bestseller, which I'm grateful
Congrats.
for,
Cheers.
which is great. Again, I did it hybrid, independent, and that's a whole other story of how I said, I want to get my story out. Here's my father. When there's a will, there's a way. You just get it done. You do it. You put a deadline. The publisher came, like everything came, right? Intention. I reached out to somebody from that group when I first came to Los Angeles.
Wow.
And they're still there. They're still in the hating and ignoring and pretending I don't exist, and that is not. And then I realized that there's also a book that they have that hasn't had the same kind of success. And then I realized, what do I need this for? Because then I realized that it wasn't really about me.
Yeah.
It wasn't about the book. It wasn't about my success. It was what it reflected on them. So people will hate on you when you are a bright, shining mirror of love and success. You would think, oh, they'd be happy for me. Oh my God. And some people from that old world have made the turnaround, which is interesting because it's undeniable. They keep looking at me and says, this woman does not give up. She's a shark. And once you read the book, it's charming and funny and,
Yes.
fun. So it's like you cannot argue with excellence. You cannot argue if you do not quit. And some people immediately told me, especially how much they laugh, how much they enjoy it, how it is like a little security blanket for them. There's some colleagues that told me, oh, I got the book. and there's cricket silence. But that's not about me, and it's not about the
Mhm.
book. It's about what this book triggers in people, because if you've read
Right.
the book is funny and episodic, but it basically challenges the reader to
Right.
look at their own patterns and family and what they have done and not done and their regrets. And
Right.
that is hard for people. So, oh well. So back to your question, how do you deal with haters? I ignore them, because what I'm realizing is obviously I'm doing something right for these people to have such hate.
Okay, well, there you go. I mean, and no, it's good to hear. I like asking people that because there's some individuals that you're like, yeah, whatever, right? And then there's some that linger a little longer. And then to your point, some people are holding grudges for 20, 30 years, and you're living your life being successful, not thinking about them. Where it's like, hey,
I, and I, you know, I grew up in a family where people did hold grudges, where people
mhm,
wouldn't talk to their brother or sister for 10 or 20 years. Like
right,
it is what it is.
right,
And you're like, what did I do? And it's like, and you have two choices: start going down the rabbit hole, and it's a form of manipulation. All that silent treatment is a form of manipulation. And I
yeah,
refused manipulation and control, and I refused. Boy, adios. I don't need you. Again, you keep moving.
yeah.
And it's just haters, Hollywood. I always have this theory, which is they're shadows. If you chase a shadow, you'll never catch it. But if
Mm.
you look towards the sun, the shadow will be behind you. And that's it.
That's it. That's so powerful. And it's a great reminder. And it seems like you have such a positive outlook on your life, but I'm sure it hasn't always been like that. So this is my favorite question to ask
Okay.
people in the career world, and answer it PG-13 or give an example however you'd like.
Okay.
But we're all human beings. We're all dealing with divorces,
Yeah.
periods, menopause, breakups, or, fight with your sister or whatever.
Right.
How have you dealt with your personal baggage when you have to clock in at 6 a.m. and pretend like nothing's happening? Could you give us some tips or an example of really how you navigate that work life balance that people don't talk about enough, right? Sometimes you do have to go cry in the restroom stall for 10 minutes and get back to desk, right? So, could you share a little example?
Oh my God. Um, Sometimes some days are very hard, right? What what calms my heart is that I know that God is with me, even though in the hard, you know, in the hard parts, the God has my back. Angels have my back. God has my back. I was married to somebody. I survived domestic abuse. It was horrible. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, Vandalized the home. It was horrible. Okay. It was very horrible. And I still had to go to work. So how do you deal with that? Right.
Right.
So at that time, oddly enough, I was working for the Department of Justice. So I was in intelligence work. And so, in a way, having the structure of work helped my mental health because I had somewhere I could go. I could kind of forget about my situation,
Mhm.
focus on that. I compartmentalize a lot. That's a big word, which is sometimes hard for women,
Right.
but I am telling you right now, compartmentalization will save your life. This is the work right now,
Mhm. Mhm.
and this is what we're going to focus, and forcing your brain to focus on the work at hand and not go into this other horrible place. And it's a mental discipline, literally. I sometimes had to have a little rubber band in my wrist and click myself to be in the present moment, because truly, if we keep going in the present moment, that's all we have.
Mhm.
Traumatic as I've had many situations, it's not just the one. I've had
Right.
many. and you're here, and then at least for this time, this 8 hours, whatever, you can just focus, and compartmentalize. I think that I have some great friends, so that's the other thing. So, and we both, some a select group of friends that I call, and that we can just talk, and that is the
Right.
same place, you know. Um, and sometimes exercise, and sometimes just take a walk, like move a muscle, change a thought. Sometimes changing the environment, doing something physically out of that mental obsession or whatever that is, it's telling the body, okay, I'm changing, and this is changing, snapping out of it. Because sometimes it's hard to. It's very, very hard, you know. And yeah, there's the bathroom crying, and yeah, there's in my case was like an underground garage in my car crying. Um, but then you're like, okay, we got to keep moving. Is this the shark
Yeah.
thing? We got to keep moving,
Right.
and because if you keep moving, you don't get shot. If you keep moving, you don't get shot.
And sometimes it really is that serious. And thank you for sharing something so intimate and open with us, because sometimes that is the reality of someone's life right now. And your career or your job or what's helping you disconnect and disassociate. What I tell women, your career, you have total control and you can find peace and serenity in that clock in,
Mhm.
ignore, and you push forward. And sometimes that's not what you want to hear. You think there's an easy solution,
Mm-mm.
but there isn't when you're in those circumstances. So thank you for sharing that. I think it's so important. And you eventually got out of it, right? And
Yeah. I mean,
progressed
because
forward.
nothing ever lasts. Nothing ever
Yeah.
lasts. But I think that what's so important in life, in screenwriting terms, there's always that page 90. And page 90 is with the hero or the heroine faces their biggest challenge. Okay. And the monster, either metaphorically or physically. Okay. So, and then you have to go fight the monster. You
Mhm.
have to fight the monster or you don't finish the movie. And once you fight the monster and you slay the monster, however that looks, you get to page 91, 92, and then you get to 110. You learn something. You get the prize. You get the treasure. You learn something. I've met a lot of people that are stuck on page 90
Mm.
with distractions. Partying, different women, different men, shopping, eating. They're on page 90. They're circling page 90. It's like circling the drain, and they're not facing their biggest fear. You got to go through. It's painful. You got to go through the pain. You cannot avoid it. You have to go through it and know that with God and faith, you will make it through. But you
Right.
have to have the courage to go through the pain and not circle page 90, because then you will never grow and you will never get to the next level that God wants you to go and achieve. And you will never learn the lesson. So, however, whoever's listening right now, if you're in a painful place, don't escape it, embrace it, go through it. The more you embrace it, the quicker you're going to get out of it. But if you keep avoiding page 90 and circling the drain and going on these detours and trips and whatever and buying and adorning page 90, you're never gonna be a hero or heroine. Like you won't. You won't grow.
That's such a great message. So thank you. And push through. If you need that tattooed, push through, right? Like just keep going.
It's just you have
Everyone's gonna go get a shark tattoo this week, because that's
you
that's
gotta
the
push
that's the reminder.
through. You
Exactly.
you gotta push through, because at the end of the day, nobody's coming. The cavalry is not coming.
It's
And that
you.
is all. No viene nadie. Nadie viene. Nobody's coming. It's
Mhm.
you. So you
Right.
gotta push. And then there's something magical that happens because you become fearless. And all those haters, all those other people, all that noise drops off. Why? Because you were your hero, you were your heroine, you moved through the monster, you slayed the monster, and you got to the other side. however scary that was. And nobody can take that away from you. That's like education. Like that's yours. Nobody can take it away.
Powerful, powerful. And I want to get back into your career, right?
Yes.
Because you're giving us such great insight in this industry that isn't meant for women to thrive, isn't meant for a minority to thrive, right? Isn't meant for, someone who came from Puerto Rico
None of it. It's
to
just
be as successful as you've been,
craziness.
right?
Craziness.
So you did it. So we left off with you starting to do a lot of the award shows,
Award
right?
shows.
So
Right.
now,
So yeah, from that award show, then I don't know, then my name was in this pool, so to speak.
and you were getting calls.
And then I was getting called, and then I ended up doing these sitcoms for Sony owned Telemundo at that time, and they were doing adaptations of American sitcoms into Spanish for Telemundo, and I ended up working, and that's how I ended up getting a Writers Guild. And I worked like on 4 years on that, and then more award shows here and there, and then I ended up, because of all this work, applying for ABC's daytime program, and I got accepted. And then I went to New York, and then I ended up creating with another group of people, other
Mhm.
interns, and it was paid a soap. We created a soap. And then after that, I ended up working on a daytime soap called Port Charles at the time and General Hospital. And then, plot twist, my mother got sick with cancer.
Mm.
And my two sisters, one was a lawyer, one was a banker, and I was the artist. I said, okay, I'll go. And so I left. I left the career and I went for a year to take care of my mother. But see, this
Wow.
is what I'm telling you. It's non it just life happens.
Right.
Life happens. So, and then I take care of my mother for a year at MD Anderson in Houston. Then she goes to Puerto Rico. She passes. And then I come back and then I don't have a job because I have left the industry. I have left that path.
Right.
So that's how I ended up applying to this contractor and ended up working for the Department of Justice. And
What a pivot. What a surprise turn of events.
but it was like, you need to get a job. And how are
Right.
you going to get a job? So I speak languages. So that's how it happened. And so then that's how I ended up going into that other world of intelligence and DA and all kinds of stuff. And so that was crazy. And then after that, I mean, it was contract work. So I would go and do different jobs here and
How
there.
did you maintain the level of writing credibility? I think that's something I'd like to hear from you. Like, is it that, like, how do you prepare yourself for your next job or prepare yourself to improve a talent skill set that you know you need to develop for a certain industry? Could you walk us through that? I
Yes,
think
and I
people
did
think
it
you can
all
write
wrong.
and it's easy,
I
but
did
it's
it all wrong. There's people that are really good at this.
how did you do it? How did you do it? We're interviewing you.
The way you do it is, at that time you would write spec scripts, meaning like, oh, you like the show Friends and you're a comedy writer, you would write a spec script, like meaning a script with all the characters, with your own storyline in that particular structure. That's the thing about Hollywood. Hollywood has, people like, wow, I want to just do my own thing. Okay, fine, you can write a movie, but even a movie has a structure. The reason Hollywood is Hollywood, the reason television is because it has certain structures. Okay, so you need to learn those structures and how to write in these structures in order to write for television. Things are changing now a little bit with verticals and streaming and all that, but I'm just talking back in the day. Okay, so back in the day, you wanted an NYPD Blue spec script or a Friends spec script, or so then that was like your calling card, because that could show that you could write for a show, that you could write in that voice of that showrunner and the voice of that character with that tone, that you understood the 3 or the 6 act structure, that you understood how to set up a joke and punchline. See what I mean? So that's how it was supposed to be done. But because I was flying between award shows and then I did the sitcoms in Spanish, which had the thing like a regular, and then I did the 1 hour drama. So I was just like kind of all over the place, depending on where. And then after that, when I was at the DEA is when we started the Islas High situation. And so then I got
Mhm.
roped into that. But before that, I ended up writing a movie, which was called East Side Story, that won a GLAAD award. So again, it's like I am not like my friend Mark. He's like, okay, drama all the way. So he has his like really tight, procedural drama lane with his specs, with all the shows that he
Yeah.
has worked. My friend Dava, soapy drama, like it's straight up. I am ADHD. Like I work on a Spanish show. Remember, I worked for Noches con Platanito, worked for another
Yes.
night show before that called Más Vale Tarde for Telemundo. I just was like in that pool of people that was working in Spanish and in English at the same time, which is kind of unheard of. I ended up
Right.
working for a game show, a couple of game shows, one called like A Minute to Win It, a version of Minute to Win It in Spanish. Like, I mean, I
Well, I
just,
remember I kind of like a little only interned for like a few days for the Don Chento or what was the show
oh my
you
God,
made?
Tumbaburros. That was
Yes,
later,
yes.
like after, like, yes, 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 girl.
You're
So
all over the place, which is
I am all over
no,
the
and
place.
it's like a good thing because I think some people think I have to stick to this lane and that's it. And
And some
you
people do, and they're very
right.
successful on it. Um,
It's interesting because, you know, it's good to hear various perspectives on how people approached that industry. But I think one thing that you're missing is or missing in sharing is your personality. You've always been so kind, so compassionate, so open. So I think that must have factored into why you're getting a lot of calls. People like working with you, right? There has to be a likability factor, I would imagine, to
it's
get those
fun. I
calls.
am fun. I
Right.
am fun. I'm fun to be around. I'm fun to work. It's just, it's fun. And I've been in so many crazy shows. And I mean, but what I think at the end of the day, I was like, every time I got hired for a new job, I had to learn that discipline.
How do you learn your discipline? How
So
do you
it's
do that?
different, even though the story is a story is a story, writing is writing is writing. Not necessarily, like, for instance, late night show is a whole other thing. Okay. Late night show is about jokes, coming up with segments,
Mhm.
interviewing guests, making sure the music, like, it's a whole other thing. Okay. And we did this show that was really, really good called Mas Vale Tarde. In fact, we had the first time Kim Kardashian was on TV. She was in Mas Vale Tarde. Like, it was like back in the day. We had Carlos Santana, we had Cesar, like we had all these people, and it was with this host called Alex Cambert, and he was a great host. And we shot it in Universal Studios. So after that, it was like, I mean, again, I've done so many things. I even went, oh wait, I'm forgetting something. Okay, let's go back.
Let's go back.
Before while I was doing the thing with Rick, the Latino logs, and my
Mhm.
then he and I ended up going to Televisa and creating two soaps.
What were the
And I
soap?
just forget everything.
We need
I
your
forget everything.
resume. We need your
I just,
resume, your IBM.
it's
Do
just
you
that I just for you know what it is that I do something and then se me olvida. And then now I'm on the next, which I think is the compartmentalization thing that we were
right.
talking about, which is good and bad. But the good part of it is that I'm not resting on the laurels. There,
Yeah.
girl, you're gonna meet people here saying, back in 1995, I was. It's like, why are we still talking about 1995 or in 2026? Oh, well, back
Right.
in 2000. I'm like, that's 26 years ago. What have you done since then? I'm just like moving. I'm always anyway. So Rick and I and this woman named Nora Alemán created a soap called La Culpa back in the day. Then we took another soap, Los Hermanos algo, no me acuerdo, and then we made it into an English soap. That Fox was also trying to do all of that
Right.
development. I mean, again, so that happened before I got the ABC thing.
Mhm.
The ABC thing. Then I went to Houston to care of my mother. Then I came back. Then I was working for the DEA. Then I did the East Side Story, but then East Los High. And also we did another movie at that time called Pop Star that was on Lifetime. And then East Los High. And then I worked on that. I left the DEA to work on East Los High. I
Mhm.
worked on that till
Which
2015.
was so impactful for the culture. Can you talk about the importance of the Latino experience, that storytelling? In knowing you for years, that's always been in your mission statement. Can you
Yes.
talk about that?
That was an incredible experience in many ways. To be in a room with Latino writers talking about Latino issues. And that show came about because organizations wanted their messaging in. Okay. That's how it was. It was kind of independently funded before it went into Hulu.
Interesting.
I was just consulting on that first season, and on the second season, it was Hulu, so it was WGA. So then, we can join in because that's a whole other thing, being in the union anyway. But we were doing special messaging about safe sex, about HIV, about bullying, about all kinds of things. So the show had that, and of course there was the dancing, there was the love, there was the romance, and then there was just fun and it was at its time, it was an incredible show. Um, it was so fascinating to me when I came in with season 2, and that's when we got a lot of Emmy nominations and Impact Award, all kinds of awards. And what surprised me the most is how the young people devoured the show, like
Yes.
like
Yes.
in one night or 2 nights, and they were like, "Where's the next season?" And you're like, "Are you kidding me? It took us all this time to write and produce and get it done." But not having to translate yourself in a room,
Mm.
not being able to talk a common language was very powerful. Was
What
ex-
would you say to as a public service announcement to the Latinos who feel like there can only be one, or that are not behaving in a way that is supportive to all, right? What would be your PSA?
My PSA is that when you go to Nordstrom's, you do not just see one pair of shoes. You see tennis shoes, you see boots, you see stilettos, you see chanclas, you see all kinds of stuff. That's how we are, because Latino is not a monolith. We are all different with
Mhm.
different experiences, different ideas, different ways of growing. We're not, and I feel that only one can be mentality comes from a colonialist kind of mentality, like the house servant or the field servant. I'm going there. I'm going there. And it's like,
Mhm.
get out of that house,
Right.
build your own, and then you don't have to be playing those roles. And the thing about it is, like, the system in Hollywood is collapsing. When there is chaos, there is opportunity, which is how I'm handling my business right now.
Right.
So, and the micro dramas are like multiple opportunity, like all of that stuff no longer exists, because
Mhm.
remember, technology now, the way the technology was as opposed to the 90s and whatever, like when I started in this business, like all that technology and old school ways of doing things was really uh, elitist and limited. Now, technology, streaming, even with a phone, you can do whatever. It's democratized.
Right.
So You have a phone, you can do anything.
That's powerful. That's power. I keep saying powerful. That's like the theme word of today.
But it's
Where
true.
it's
You have a
true.
phone.
It's
You can
true.
just do your microdrama. You go into your you
Put
you.
something on an AI and then they'll like design it, do it.
We're in a
It's
creator
it's
economy.
too it's too important as a community to continue the envy, to continue the animosity, or
No, but
it's just it really. I think I'm seeing it less as the generations progress, but I knew that
I
was
think it's a
an
generational
issue.
thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was an
generational.
issue before. I okay, let's talk about your book. Talk to me about the journey of your book, Latina Survival Guide
Survival
by
guide.
Charo Toledo. It is find it on Amazon. Walk us
Yes.
through the journey of you writing your book, getting it published.
You know what? Let me just tell you something. This book I've had in my computer for a long time.
How many years?
I've had the computer for, I've had entries of the book for 10 years.
Wow.
And I was circling page 90.
For many years.
I
Oh
was
no.
circling page 90. Yes, I was just like, oh, no, 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 no. I can't go in there. That is too revealing, blah, 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 blah. Which takes me back to where I am in my spirituality, in my journey as a person that finally had the courage that I had looked under the bed and I had known my monsters, so nobody can point them out to me, right? So now I can expose them in a kind, gentle, loving way because I am not using the book to resolve it.
Mm.
I'm or blaming or no, 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 or trauma porn. No, no, no. I have already resolved it. I am using the book to give hope and show another side. So the first entries, the first pass of the book, first of all, I wanted to do this book. I started doing things and I tried to go with an New York agent, but he was white and he didn't get what I'm trying to do here. It's just, again, we go back to the same thing. You got to find your audience and you got to find the
Mhm.
right partner. You cannot expect somebody who hasn't had this experience. And I was trying to do something totally different.
Right.
So my friend Carolina introduced me to Adriana Rosales. She has a hybrid publishing RMP studio. And I said, okay, we'll do it. And I said, I want to publish it by this was in March of 25 of last year, like a year ago. And I said, I want to publish it in December 25, 2025. And she says, you are absolutely insane. I said, no, I'm not crazy. I know that this can be done because when you work for television, you work really fast, right? It's different. And at that time, I also had a full-time job. I mean, it was
Okay.
crazy. Okay. So she says, "Are you sure?" I said, "Yes, we're doing this. It's gonna happen." So she gave me some deadlines, and I met every deadline. The first pass of the book uh, was written from the child point of view.
Which I've been enjoying reading those first few chapters. So
It was from the
well done.
children. It's from a child point of
Yeah.
view. I had to get my child point of view because it takes place in Puerto Rico in the 70s and 80s in this particular enclave, which is a suburban upper middle class. It's a world nobody knows.
Mhm.
Very nostalgic. Some of those places are no longer there. So it's like a really time capsule. It's like the Wonder Years. It's like the Puerto Rican Wonder Years, is how I can in American terms. So the second pass, I retyped the whole manuscript, 64,000 words. Again, when I retyped the manuscript, which is of course insane, the adult came in
Mm.
and reframed the childhood experience. So it's my younger self and my older self. So the older self, like there's a chapter about my mother, okay? Um, Radiant Rage in Paso Fino ankles. My mother was very violent with us, okay? And I think that a lot of Latina women have a lot of rage inside.
Mhm.
and frustration. And so the way they were raised, and then they were disciplined, is the way they discipline, and on and on and on. So I had to be very careful in that chapter, not to blame my mother or anything, but to understand where she came from. Okay. And it's a spoiler alert, but you read it. But basically, there's a scene there where it was her birthday, and we had gone hiking with these boys from the beach, and one of the boys was black. Okay. And then we got lost. We were going from one beach to another beach, and we got lost, and then we came back to the beach, and she was waiting for us, and she beat the shit out of me with my father's belt and my father's shoe, which is even crazier.
Yeah.
And it was humiliating, and her rage, because my mother, okay, when my father was courting my mother, my grandfather said, no, you're not going to be with this disabled man. So my grandfather, shipped my mother to the South, to Virginia,
Oh.
before the American Disabilities Act. So remember, back in the day, there was the colored and the
Mhm.
white. She was
Mhm.
in the white dorm, but the Southern women would harass her, throw face, because she was,
Right.
again. So in her mind, she connected all of this. So now she's seeing me coming
Mhm.
with this black boy who, really, there was nothing going on. But in her mind, we had sex in the mouth. Who knows what was going on in her mind?
Right. Everything, all of the above, because that's how
All of it.
Latinas mother are.
All of it. And all that rage. And it was humiliating. And then I went into the beach house and I cut off my hair. I cut it all off.
That's a statement in a Latino household. You don't cut your long, beautiful hair.
Cut it all off. But in the adult me writing the story, retyping it the second time, I realized she was afraid. She went back to Virginia in the 1950s, and her thing, and that I was going to have a kid that was half black, and all of this crazy stuff, unprocessed trauma. But if you read when you read the chapter, you see how tender it is dealt. I'm not blaming here. I'm not the victim of the telenovela. I'm not of it. It's always all. She was alone in that place in Virginia in the 50s, eating alone. Nobody would talk to her, all of that. And years later, here I am in a bathroom at the beach house with a pair of rusty scissors, cutting my hair alone.
Yeah. And it's so interesting because I think as Latinos, we don't deal with our childhood trauma. All of us have gone through our own version because of the culture, because of the machismo.
You don't talk about it. You just
We don't talk about it. And we could talk about the colorism and the racism another podcast, but it's the reality that we don't talk about enough. And to your point, as an adult, you have to go through so much learning, re-educating yourself, changing your mindset, forgiving, moving forward, not judging. And you have done this in your book. So I'm sure you're looking back, and so you rewrote the chapters and you get to the end and you've realized you've lived an incredible life and you've been able to move past so much hurt, so much success, so much happiness, and you are where you are today.
I mean, that book is just, I was born in a hurricane, literally. And then 18, I graduate. And at the end of the chapter, the last chapter talks about this list of what would make you happy and the myth of that. So when you get there, you'll see. So the book will make you laugh, will make you cry, but it also make you reflect, What is this list?
Your survival, without giving too much away, your survival guide tips. I sit to think for a few minutes when I end a chapter because it makes you reflect. And that within itself, you're almost giving people free therapy.
I know, but I'm not a doctor. I'm not certified.
Anyone, but that's so important on reflection. It's not I'm sure it wasn't meant to be a self-help book, but as a Latina reading the book and as someone who can understand where you're coming from, it's helping me reflect my own childhood. And to your point, I think many of your friends and networks who are enjoying it are also reading it and viewing it. But it does take that shared experience of Latinidad
Mhm. It does.
to get a further understanding of it.
It does, and like you said, each chapter it's written like a telenovela, so it's
Mhm.
episodes instead of chapters. They're very short, like 3 or 4
Yeah.
pages, and at the end, there's a survival law, and so that's what, in case people don't know what you're talking about, so that's what Diane's talking about, and then I ended up creating an app where you can track your survival law and you can even write your own thing. I mean, it's just something simple, but I thought, and I do want to expand this LSG universe into book clubs and different things. I
Right.
have some merch. I just have been busy with other projects, but I feel like originally, I wanted the book to be a how-to book because I thought,
Mm.
oh, that sells, crazy.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, how to buy a house, how to file it for divorce, how to, blah, 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 how to change the oil in the car. Like that's how it was born. But then
Mm.
the book wanted to be something else.
Yeah.
So that's when you have to respect that the book wanted to be something else. And then it ended up being this.
I
But
love it. I love it. A round of applause. Round of applause because it's so good. It's so good. So I love that. And again, thank you for sharing. I think just even being a Latina, being published, I'm sure you're a part of a percentage of Latinas now who have accomplished this goal. Would you say it was an easy journey because you had the network? If someone didn't have the network of publishers and writers, how would you recommend someone navigate that?
I mean, Adriana Rosales, my publisher, she's the one. Without her, nothing would have been. I mean, she really took me through how it all works, how to format the book, what are things, the IBS numbers. Like, I mean, there's still more stuff that I have to do. I have to put it in Ingram Sparks. I'm doing the translation
Mhm.
into Spanish in order to go to Puerto Rico because I was going to go to Puerto Rico with the English book, and I'm like, that makes no sense. They speak
Yeah.
Spanish there. I spoke Spanish there. This is una falta de respeto. You know what I mean? So now I'm working on that. I'm working on the audio. I do a minute a day on my Instagram, the Latina Survival Guide. But what was great with her is not only that the book, but then she introduced me to this other group of Latinas called Lean In Latinas. And so she's like, you have to go to this conference. It was at the LinkedIn building in San Jose. And
Mhm.
so I said, okay. And look again, I hadn't gotten in a plane in 10 years because after
Wow.
my dad died, I was just like, I can't. And then COVID and no sé qué. So I was like, oh my God, I cannot let Adriana down. I have to get on a plane. So I got on a plane and I went, it was fine, but there I met the other uh, published authors under her and other people, other Latinas. So that kind of thing was amazing. And then that's a network that I have, and I probably will go this year. And then I'll have my book, and then I'll be able to get it signed. But that's another organization, Leaning Latinas, that is pretty amazing.
That's wonderful. And would you recommend, as an individual and as a career person, to join various organizations to further your goals?
Yeah, I mean, I do belong to some. I am not the best networker. My friend Victor is such a good networker because he doesn't want to do social media. So a lot of my networking I do in social media. I know it sounds crazy, but yeah, I think that. But finding the right organization as opposed to being in everything at once, depending on what you want to do, But when Adriana said, you have to go to this is where I didn't, I put all my fears aside and I said, okay, yes. And I think that that's really important when a
Mhm.
mentor or when somebody who's helping you or it says, you need to do this, as scared or excuse it, you have to put that aside and you're going to say, yes, and let's go.
Charo, you do a million things. You're such a hustler. How do you have hobbies? Do you have anything that isn't work?
Oh,
What's your
baking.
self-help? Baking. Okay.
Baking.
Okay. How do you stay disciplined to, let's say, you have to read for 30 minutes or you're gonna set time to bake. How do you structure your discipline?
For hobbies, like for baking, I just love doing it. Baking, baking, especially because I'm a writer and I'm in all these worlds that are like, you can't grasp them, right? Baking is great because you get a piece of dough, you let it rise, and then put it in the oven, and then you have something delicious that I actually share with my neighbors, which is part of my I love doing that.
Yeah.
And I go for walks. I used to work out a lot. I have to get back to it. But
We all do. We all do.
but at this point, if it's something that I love to do, I'm not going to put a time limit on it. I'm just going to say, this is what I'm going to do today. And
Mhm.
that's it. You know, I do help people as well. I do a lot of service work. So that takes time. Um, but life is very simple to me nowadays. I think once you remove distractions, toxic people, all that kind of stuff, like I go to church, I hang out
You
with
live
my
in peace.
and I garden. I love to garden, so that's a big one for me. Walk, garden, being nature. I don't know. It's just the
And
best.
how do you discipline yourself on your projects, work projects, or
Oh,
work
okay.
development?
Like for instance, right now, yes, I people, my friend Mark is like, Char, why do you? I'm in awe. How can you do so much? So last year was a lot. I had a full time job. I was doing the book, and I also rewrote my movie #Blind Hope, which is a romantic musical drama. And with the help of Sophia and some people, like we put on a stage reading of it. Out of that, two partners came in, and now we are getting ready to start this funding capital structure for the movie on July 23rd. So I'm now gearing up towards that. I had a great meeting yesterday. So now I'm putting the package together for this huge movie that will be shot in Puerto Rico
Congratulations.
in March of 2027.
Wow.
And I'm going to be directing it. So
That's
with Annabelle
amazing.
Mullen. So that's a big thing. But again, I'm now dealing with these guys from Cineblock. They have a particular structure where people own the film.
Mm.
So whatever you contribute in a certain tier, you, the audience, will be owners of the film, which is incredible. It's an incredible.
Crowdfunding has changed the game for Hollywood,
It
for a lot of industries, actually.
And
So,
it's like, but instead of like a Citizen Park that you give money and adios, no, this is you're gonna own a piece of it. What's so great about that is that then you promote it because you are part of the film, and you
and you're going to have to share the link of all of your projects so then I can share that, and you'll find that in uh, subs- the uh, the subheading below once this is posted onto YouTube and whatnot. So that's incredible. I'd like to end with this question. In your words, what's one piece of advice you would give someone that really helped you push forward for your career outside of being a shark, right?
in everything that you do, ask the question, how am I being of service to my audience, to the person? Am I elevating the world?
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you to all the listeners. Thank you, Charo, for being on. We
Thank
want to say
you.
thank you. We hoped you enjoyed this
Part of that
episode
question.
with a very special guest. And we hope to hear you and have you at our next episode. Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye.
you, Diana. Bye.